r/AskReddit. What is something you can no longer enjoy due to a bad experience? Apple juice. Spent too much time in hospitals growing up, and every meal was served with apple juice. Same. I used to love apple juice, but hospitals just ruined it for me. I gotta have 2 more procedures this year, and I hope they don't shove a pink cup of it in my face immediately after I wake up. Why don't they just stick with plain old water? Don't wanna risk ruining water for you as well though. Eating bananas. Me and my friend were at lunch, and as he bit into his banana it crunched. He looked at it, and the center of the banana was infected with a red crunchy fungus. This ruined bananas for me. Pretty sure it's just ruined bananas for me too. Bought some strawberries from the marketplace. I was looking forward to eating them with some cream as dessert. I prepared them and went to my room to watch a movie later that evening. I didn't notice at first because of the cream, but I felt something weird in my mouth, and as I took a closer look, I could see white worms wiggling all over my method-looking strawberries. You better believe I puked that night. That incident put me off strawberries for a few years despite them being one of my favorite fruits. I eat them again now, but I make sure to check every single one I will be using before popping them into my mouth. Thanks guys, I'm scared of eating fruit now. Orange Gatorade. That's my go-to flu or food poisoning drink. It ruins it for me outside of that. Yellow Gatorade is my health potion of choice. I enjoy just a beverage, especially when I'm really thirsty. You may not remember this, but Gatorade used to be saltier. They put less salt in and added more sugar. I used to love, when I was kid, buying a lemonade flavored Gatorade at the gas station, glass bottle too. They still make lemonade Gatorade I think, but it's a rare find. If you're ever bored, mix yellow Gatorade with the light blue one. It turns green and is quite tasty. In middle school they sold the 3 primary colors, and me being in art class I found out how to mix all 3 into different colors. So I resold them at $1.50, while the school sold them at $1.25. I used to love chicken tikka. Our ex-co-worker went through a period of not washing for several days at a time, and the smell was really close to chicken tikka. The smell of chicken tikka now makes me feel sick. The only solution is to kill and eat your former coworker. This is the way. Jumping on trampolines, just because I tore my ACL 3 times. Jesus Christ. Please stay the hell away from trampolines. I swear I almost broke my neck on a trampoline once. That's probably a little dramatic, but I remember falling off the trampoline, and I hit the ground head first. I couldn't move, and my whole body was buzzing from the neck down, but I was able to get up eventually. Fake cherry smell. I can do cherry candies, but the air freshener type cherry scent triggers the worst visceral reaction. I start sweating, heart races, and I immediately start prepping to throw up. When I was 5 I had to have a tonsillectomy. It was in the early 90s, and they knocked you out with gas. Because I was a kid, they let me pick the flavor of kids masks. The nurse who prepped me for surgery probably thought I wouldn't remember, but she smashed the mask over my nose and mouth and held me down while I struggled until the gas knocked me out. There have only been a few times where I've smelled that again, and I react the same way every time. Banana for me. How traumatic. Any pre-prepared food with any kind of shellfish. When I was 8 I had a bowl of cream of crab soup that didn't have a piece of shell removed. Had rectal bleeding and minor surgery for a small hole. Never gonna trust it again. After the first sentence, I expected to read that it wasn't fresh and gave you the runs. But this is much worse. Combine the two and you have sepsis. Hot dogs. 15-hour flight. 3 days of food poisoning. I cannot eat hot dogs or plain food under any circumstance. A hot dog on a plane. Has bad idea written all over it. Plain food is ducking disgusting. No food poisoning or anything, but that meals lingers with me for a day or two. Kills any desire to eat anything. I don't think airplane food is actually that bad. It just tastes really bland because of the high air pressure and the low humidity on the plane. Georgia Minister. Had a really bad experience once. If I even just smell black licorice my mouth will start to salivate, like I'm going to vomit Exorcist style everywhere. Yup. 2006 Jajabums. Are you guys my friends? Similar experience on this side around 2006. Can't do Jagger anymore. Everyone has a Jagger story. Going out and having a drink alone. Got drugged, almost died. Now I only drink if I'm at home. Holy duck, that's brutal. I'm sorry that happened to you. Same. Got assaulted because I was alone and apparently a girl I was seeing had a boyfriend. Such a backwards ass thing to happen. It's a responsibility not to cheat, but the monkey brain says you are taking his girl, so you get beaten. Domino's pizza. I got a mouthful of clumped hair when I bit into a slice. I hate hair in my food. It's one of my gross out factors that will kill my appetite. With that pizza, I brushed it off the best I could because I was starving and grabbed another slice. Mouthful of hair again. I had to pick long strands of hair out of my teeth. No more Domino's. It was probably an isolated incident, but now my brain equates Domino's with hairy pizza and I can't order from them anymore. Sadly, it isn't. I can't tell you how many times I have specifically told them to add extra hair, only to have them mix up the order and end up giving me some random person's hairless pizza. I hope you called back to complain. Watch any Godzilla movie. When I was 8 years young my mother rented the movie Godzilla that I was waiting for months to see. She played the movie and leave the room. She went out to buy groceries. Turns out it wasn't Godzilla, it was hardcore porn movie that the renter misplaced, and I watched the first half confused because I thought at some point I was going to see Godzilla. Then my mother came back from the store and realized what happened. She went back to the movie store to storm it, I believe. Just think of the poor guy that went to the same video store to cop some beat off material, gets all the way home, and pops the tape into his VCR and Godzilla comes on. Roller coasters with loops, but specially untamed at Canobie Lake Park. Went on it 3 years ago and leaned forward on the loop. The momentum caused me to hit my head on the shoulder harness and black out for a few seconds. The concussion after that was brutal. I remember going on the corkscrew coaster they had at Canobie when I was younger and getting my head bounced like a pinball between the overhead restraints. Still loved it though. When I was 15 I decided one night when I was bored and alone to eat at the French restaurant near my house. This was the first time I'd been to a proper restaurant without my parents, so I was sort of excited. Everything was going well until the waiter asked if I would like a bread roll with my entree. Being new to this sort of thing and not exactly flush with cash I asked, "Is it free?" Well, it was like I called his grandma a whore because he got really angry and launched into a big speech, swinging his arms everywhere about how nothing is free in life blah blah blah. I finished my meal there, but I've never eaten at a French restaurant since. If invited out to one I make excuses. Eggo waffles. Ate them every morning before late elementary and middle school. I was never a morning person, so shoving frozen waffles covered in butter and maple syrup at 6 AM while horribly underslept was never enjoyable. And now I can't eat them because I flash back to the general feeling of dread from every morning. I can still feel the knots in my stomach. That's why I don't like the smell of coffee. Makes me think of getting up both for school as well as a terrible job I had for a while. Chili. One night I ate it for dinner and later threw it up in bed. To this day I don't know my reasoning, But in my drowsy state I decided to just go back to sleep, and I woke up laying in a mix of vomit, chunks of meat, and beans. Forbidden breakfast. Smoking weed. I was 17, smoking in my friend's room he was renting from a man named Juan Carlos, and all of a sudden a SWAT team came and busted down the door and looked around at a couple of white kids, us, and said, "None you look like Juan Carlos," then proceeded to empty my bag, and needless to say, I super high and freaked out. Ever since then, I get that same feeling when smoking weed. This experience is what every anxious person thinks when they smoke weed. I can't believe it happened to you. Playing the violin. I was in 6th grade and just started to learn the violin. My family didn't make much, but my mom saved some money to rent a violin for me. I go to the class and the teacher was under the impression that I knew the basics, which I didn't. I did take a class before this one, but I didn't learn much from it, probably cause I was a crazy kid. So I try to tell the teacher that I have no idea where the notes on the violin are, but he just didn't get it. Then we get a quiz where we have to play the scale, and one by one each student plays it, and he remarks after each one, "Good job, A+." Now it's my turn. I tried my best, but I couldn't do it. My teacher said, "Well, that was not good," and continued on. Needless to say, I joined choir the next day. Cliff jumping. Bit part of my tongue off because I accidentally had my mouth open after realizing I was making a beeline towards a large rock. Thankfully I missed it by about 2 to 3 feet, but that nub of my tongue did not survive. Luckily it grew back because the chip was barely small enough to where it could heal. Extremely lucky things didn't end up worse for me that day, but you can rest assured I'm never doing that again. It sounds like biting your tongue is a relatively good injury considering what could have happened.